The way I see it, Chris, once these conferences start conference play and are fully entrenched in conference scheduling, then they all go 500. So unless you're a football scout and can analyze that this conference is much faster than this conference and has better talent based on the results on the field, you can't come to any conclusion in ranking the conferences against each other. So this is basically the final week that we have of results against one another to rank these conferences. Then at the end of the season, the ACC matches up against the SEC in 4 pretty crucial games. But the rest of the conferences don't do that sort of scheduling, and there's a game here and there for the rest of the season. But this week 3, this is pretty much it. And then the conferences go to their silos and aren't heard from and don't mix and mingle until postseason play.
What I would say to that is, you're right. Once we get into conference play, we know who won what games. However, it's not until we get out of conference play, or done with the season, that we kind of understand where those teams wound up. So if you look at Texas, who I expect will finish somewhere around 5-7, and you look at USC, who could win the Pac-12, it's not, are we going to hold that against the Big 12 that they lost that game? Like that kind of thing. So what I would say is, once the conference play is up, then we go look at the evenly matched non-conference games and kind of and take into account, early in the season versus later in the season, attrition and that kind of thing. But you look at those matchups, the kind of the even matchups, and then see how well the Power 5 did against each other.
Look at the even matchups, but you can also at times look at where did a lower tier beat an upper tier team. I know that one of the classic examples was a few years ago, and Mizzou won the SEC Eastern Division and only lost 1 game, and Indiana was awful in the Big Ten and pulled off the upset. So those don't happen very often, but it's a real cool coup for your conference in particular if you're able to go out there and snatch a win against an upper tier team from another conference. So let's run down the matchups. Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Iowa State matchup, and it's a rivalry, and it's typically a close game, and Iowa State kind of gave that up in, they had the lead there with 2 minutes left, let Iowa drive the field, get the touchdown, take it to overtime, and that's all the Hawkeyes needed to get the win. But you said that Iowa expected to win 7-8 games in the Big Ten. Iowa State is not expected to get 7 wins in the Big 12.
No, that's a great example. So let's say Iowa State does what you would expect them to do, and I'll defer to your projections since you know the conference. Let's say Iowa State goes 6-6. You want to give them a 6-6 and maybe a 4-5 in the conference versus an Iowa that I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe this is the high end, but they go 9-3 and 6-3 in the Big Ten. And that's a pretty good effort out of the Cyclones, even though you can't say that they won the game, that they took Iowa to overtime, an upper echelon Big Ten team versus where they're placing currently and projected in the Big 12.